What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Through Hine Show. And today, joining me, I have Frank Laplaca, host of the unofficial Bengals podcast. How you doing today, Frank?
All right, Jordan. Great to be on the show again, and the playoffs are here. It's our favorite time of the year.
Yeah, cannot believe it. Favorite time of the year. 2 years ago, I hated this time because we were never in it, and now back-to-back years, winning the AFC North for the first time in franchise history. Going to be back in the playoffs and everything. But obviously, we took on the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. But before the Ravens game. A couple of days before, they talked about, the playoff implications with the Bengals and the Ravens, with a coin flip. If we would have lost and if we would have ended up playing Baltimore, with a coin flip would have decided we would have played in Baltimore or Cincinnati. And also when you look at when it comes to the AFC Championship game, if we play Kansas City in an AFC Championship game, we're going to have to go on the road, but the Buffalo does. It's a, neutral side. Just the really hypocrisy of it. I kind of talked about it yesterday, and kind of got pregame, special talking about the Ravens, game yesterday. What are your kind of thoughts on this whole situation with the playoff implications, changing because of the cancellation of the Bengals and Bills game last Monday night?
I just recorded my podcast, Jordan, and what I said on there was nice guys finish last. And when you think about everything that we did, right, we were so accommodating. Coach Taylor saying, we're not stopping the game for 5 minutes. We can see you guys don't want to play. We're not going to play. That was a good guy move. Just everything that the fans weren't even mad in the audience. I thought people were going to be screaming, oh, I can't believe you're canceling the game. Everyone was just so supportive. You had the Bengals captains go over to the other locker room and talk. I mean, just everything that we did were good guy moves. And then the league gives us the short end of the stick. And, as Bengal fans, we're kind of used to it. And maybe from a little bit of PTSD, we think everything is a conspiracy against us. And, who knows how valid any of that is. But this was unfair. They changed the rule book, which was supposed to be based on winning percentages. And then they changed it to, hey, we're going to do a coin toss if Baltimore beats you, even though they don't have a better winning percent. I know I'm rambling about this, but they didn't have to do that. And if you're going to do it on one side, all right, yeah, Baltimore technically could have tied Cincinnati, right? So the coin toss is necessary there. But the Bengals could have technically tied Buffalo, so there should have been a coin toss there. And I know that's the common argument. It wasn't fair in that regard. But the NFL is going to say, well, the Bengals and Bills played the same number of games, and the Bengals and Ravens didn't, and that's why we're going to incorporate the coin toss. Either way, they should have just stuck to the rule book. And whenever you do something like this, someone always loses. And in this case, it was the Bengals, because when we move on to the second round of the playoffs, it's now going to be on the road due to this decision.
You talked about when we move on. I've said this so many times. I cannot wait to play the Ravens in the playoffs. This is the matchup I've been waiting for the whole year in the playoffs. We'll kind of talk about that later, but I completely agree. Just the hypocrisy of it doesn't make any sense to me. You're going to have Buffalo and Kansas City, a neutral site, but Buffalo does not have as good a record as Kansas City. They've played less games, but the same thing could be said for us. Buffalo and Cincinnati both beat the Chiefs. We're not having a coin flip for that. Baltimore beats us, but we are. I don't understand it at all. And even though we did win yesterday, the fact that you basically crown us AFC North champions when there was a fact like yesterday, Baltimore would have won and they would have hosted the playoff game. To me, I just don't understand that. Why would you not? Why would you crown ourselves AFC North champions if there was, now I understand, but before yesterday, the fact that Baltimore still had a chance to, host a game against us in the wild card, even though they're not division winners, the whole thing, this is ridiculous. It makes no sense. And like you're saying, it feels like when there's, different things like this, we always get the worst end of it. It's nothing new, but it just there gets to a certain point. You would think some of this would start ending, especially, with our success as of late and Burrow being on our team now, all the hype and everything. But once again, it just feels like we are always on the bad side of things when it comes to rulings, officiating and everything like that.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe this is sour grapes, but do you think they would have done that to Dallas? I almost feel like they wouldn't have. The league kind of protects its prized franchises. But let's be honest, as Bengal fans, what happened. We were going to beat the Bills that night. You could just see it. I know we come out to fast starts. Teams eventually catch up a little bit later, but that looked like our game to win. Even the way the second drive started before the tragic event happened. But that's what was going to happen. We were going to beat Buffalo. We were going to beat the Ravens, and we were going to be the number 2 seed. We couldn't control the Chiefs. They won their game. So they would have been won regardless. But that number 2 seed was ours, and we got shafted. But, we'll let it fuel the fire. We're not going to make excuses. We're just going to mow through the playoffs, and it's going to be a tough run. a divisional opponent in round one, we're going to tag them. And then we go to the golden child Buffalo and then the golden child KC. We'll take both of them out too. I'm ready. The team's ready. And everyone, the league who kind of screwed us over on this one, well, we'll get you back when we win the Super Bowl.
Like you're saying, if this was Dallas, absolutely not. This would not be happening. God, could you imagine this was the Steelers? We wouldn't even be having this conversation. Like, they would literally move the Super Bowl back and everything to make everything right for the Steelers and the NFL's, child that they absolutely love, the Steelers, Cowboys, Patriots, those teams who are constantly on. They always, give them favors and everything like that. But yeah, it is just so crazy. And when you look at this Bills and Bengals game, like you're saying, you got off to a hot start, and then, unfortunately, the event happened, unable to continue the game. Kind of talking about, the Bengals and, Ravens game, from yesterday, the Bengals ended up winning the game 27-16. And it was kind of a similar, game where the Bengals got off to a fast start. At the end of the first quarter, it was 10-0. And it was one of those situations where, with Baltimore's injuries and everything like that, it's so frustrating. You hear these excuses. Oh, well, if Jackson would have played, they would have won. If Huntley would have played, maybe they would have won. I've said this so many times for months now. I don't care if Jackson was 100% healthy. I don't care if Huntley was playing. I don't care if Mark Andrews, Dobbins, whatever. We weren't going to lose this game. And when you look at this, we got off to a fast, great start, but we kind of fizzled out towards the second, third, and fourth quarter. And that, to me, was not a good thing at all. It kind of concerned me a little bit because we've seen this several times now. When you look at, the Patriots game, we started off very, very fast, and then we just kind of, I don't know if the play calling got conservative or just wasn't really aggressive compared to the first quarter, but we were just, in the second half, we weren't really as good as what we've, been in the first quarter. Burrow was 25 of 42. He only barely had over 200 yards. And I know stats are very deceiving sometimes, but I feel like the stats kind of indicate Burrow's game and play yesterday. He was off. He missed multiple passing touchdowns. Early on in the game, he had a wide open chase, but he underthrew him just a tad bit. Look at I believe it was the first quarter, he had a wide open Higgins. He missed him. But when you look at, hopefully Burrow will be able to pick it up. I know he's had a couple of dud performances. I guess it's better to go ahead and get a dud performance out of the way before the postseason, but still, that's not something you should be seeing from Burrow when it comes to the regular season finale and all the hype around this game. Mixon, holy crap. This just does not make any sense. 11 carries for 27 yards. That should not be happening. You would expect at the end of the regular season finale, at some point, Mixon's run game will get going, and that has certainly not been the case at all. Heading into the season, I was so high on Mixon. I thought he was going to possibly get close to 2,000 total yards due to his, rushing game and pass catching game. Pass catching game, I'm not going to lie, I'm not trying to brag. I was dead right. When it comes to total yards, I could not have been farther away from the truth. It just seems so weird with him. You would think he would get it going. It's just not been the case. And I'm sure now there could be talks about him maybe, being cut in the offseason. Some people have said it. I'm not really totally for it, but, who knows? Should be interesting there. Chase had 86 receiving yards and a touchdown. Boyd had 5 and 51 receiving yards. This defense played pretty good. Joseph Asai had a sack, and he also had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Mike Hilton had a pick. Jesse Bates had a pick. And you just kind of knew this Bengals defense was going to be very aggressive, ready to play because, they were tipped off with that, coin flip and everything. Mixon even had a celebration about that, basically mocking it. But this defense, you knew they would get ready to play because they're playing the Ravens, a division rival. And, they're playing Anthony Brown, a guy who's never started in the NFL before. And he struggled early on. He really struggled for the game. He was 19 of 44. When you look at this, Ravens, offense, they were just not really able to get anything going. And it was one of the situations they were just too far behind that they couldn't really, catch up with the Bengals. But when you look at this, Ravens team, they had 4 turnovers. We won 27-16. And like I said, we had a defensive touchdown. The thing that concerns me is the fact that we won by 11 points. Baltimore had 4 turnovers, and we scored a defensive touchdown. Take that defensive touchdown away, it's 20-16 with a third-string quarterback who has never started the NFL game before. I was so confident that we were not going to lose this Baltimore game. And I know we didn't, but the fact that, the injuries towards Baltimore's way, and I know we got to win, that's what matters most, but the Bengals should have played better than this. I really thought we were going to, go out, play maybe slow from the start, just because, trying to kind of get you mentally prepared. Because, what, everything happened last week against the Bills. I don't know how you can kind of really prepare for that. Stepping on the foot at the beginning of the game would just kind of be odd, because, you were in that situation. But to me, I just felt like overall, we left a lot on the table. We should have played better than that. We could have won by a lot more, like I said, with Burrow's 2 passing touchdowns that he could have had back. But I'm glad we won. But there was a lot that we kind of left on the table and just not able to do. I know we won. That's what matters most. But I was really hoping we kind of see more from the Bengals yesterday against Baltimore.
Yeah, it was a weird game because they were talking about how we were running a little bit of a vanilla scheme offensively. So, I'm not sure if that was the case. I mean, we were running – I saw 5 wides in there. I saw trips. I saw a lot of the stuff we normally do. There were a lot of checkdowns in this game. I don't really know the answer on what happened in the second half. I know we went 3 and out, I believe, on the first drive. And then Baltimore had the ball for a while. We had a turnover. We had some drives where it looked like we were trying to run out the clock. But it is alarming that we only scored 3 points in the second half of that game. And there's a lot that you said that I wanted to unpack very quickly. Joe Burrow didn't have his best game, and he self-admittedly, he said that. And, Burrow can do no wrong in my eyes. I mean, think about what he's done for this organization. We know he is the man and one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. But yeah, he missed a couple passes. The one to Chase early in the game, he underthrew, it got tipped away. The one to Higgins, you never see Burrow technically miss a layup like that, right? And then what I saw that he never does is he threw guys into hits a few times. And that's one thing I love about Joe Burrow. He doesn't set his guys up for hits. Like, you look at someone like Russell Wilson, he's just like, oh, there's my running back. Let me dump the ball to him for a negative -1-yard gain and have him get lit up by a linebacker. And that was something I was always so proud of Joe Burrow, that he has the sense to not do that to his players. And this game, he set up a couple guys for hits. Like, Hurst took 2 nasty hits. Boyd took a nasty hit, not the concussion hit, but another one. Higgins took that hit to the chest, that weird, ironic one right by the spot of Hamlin, like those things. So that was very un-Joe Burrow-like, and he was aware of it. He addressed it after the game that he did not have a good game, but when you think about it, he still did enough good things for us to win that game. And the throwing on the run is what I really love out of him. Obviously, in the pocket, he is a surgeon. It's perfect technique. You want to know how to play quarterback, watch Joe Burrow's footwork and the way he follows through with his upper body when he's back in the pocket. All that stuff is good. But the throwing on the run, we all know those are tough throws. When you're rolling left, now you have to kind of reset your body to make sure the ball doesn't sail. When you're rolling to your strong side right, it's so easy to sail that ball out of bounds. He's making all those throws, and he was continuing to do that in this game. And one of the biggest things is because he keeps his eyes downfield. So he has the body control to make those throws, but he keeps his eyes downfield. And a lot of inexperienced quarterbacks or quarterbacks that aren't as good as him, they get nervous. They're watching the rush. They're watching what's going on in front of them, and that leaves them susceptible to interceptions and bad plays downfield. Joe Burrow doesn't do that. That's why he's successful. On to Joe Mixon. It was a tough game for him. They have a good front there, and I still think Mixon has something left in the tank. You think about it, he had the 4-touchdown game or something, whatever that was, like a couple weeks back. We can't totally forget that. And he's becoming a real weapon in the passing game. I'm not sure what was going on run game-wise. It might have been their defensive front. It may have been when Kappa went down, Sharping. We have to analyze how well he's blocking in the run game. But I think what Mixon is going to evolve to, he's going to be a pass-catching running back down the road. He's not going to be a 20-carry bell cow guy. Those numbers are going to go down. He's going to split time, maybe with P. Ryan, maybe with someone else down the road. But I see him as becoming a real threat in the passing game more than anything. So those are the 2 things I wanted to address from this game. But, yeah, the game was closer than I thought. But when you think about it, they were 2 scores down the whole time. And it felt like if there was urgency for us to really do something, I think we would have. We kind of, I don't know, we kind of like slap boxed with them the whole time. Like, yeah, we're good. We're winning. We're not getting hurt. No one's getting hurt. We're good. So I think that's how the game went. But, yeah, it would have been nice to see a better performance out of Burrow right before the playoffs. But I'm not worried there. Mixon, I'm not worried there. I'm not worried right now. Not the ideal game, but a win, and we'll save it for next week. Next week are going to be fireworks.
Oh, absolutely. And, Jet Gamer here, I'm still waiting to hear what's up, everybody. Sports Behind Show. Yeah, I put the video at 6:05 instead of 6:35. So that was the reason that I got confused with my time. He also said, "Can't wait to see the Bengals versus Justin Tucker." It's it's the truth. Justin Tucker is the heart and soul of this Baltimore Ravens team. I mean, he scored more points than all the other Baltimore Ravens combined yesterday. It's not a coincidence. I mean, as stupid as it sounds, if you stop Tucker, you're going to beat the Ravens, and I mean it's absolutely crazy. But talking about this game, and I'm not trying to make excuses for Cincinnati. I don't like to make excuses. I try to be realistic as I possibly can. I saw a tweet by somebody, and the more I thought about it, it actually kind of made some sense. I felt like Taylor maybe was kind of just really conservative, maybe in the second half, when we were up by 2 possessions, like you mentioned, because there's no point in doing trick plays. There's no point in doing, some crazy plays, because heading into this game, there was a decent chance that we were going to be playing each other again, this upcoming week in the wild card matchup. So why would you do these crazy plays when you could save them for the playoffs, a game that matters much more than this game right now? And you have opportunity to do some plays, or I mean you have since you're not doing these plays this week, you have so much more on the table you can maybe bring out this upcoming week when we play each other. So maybe leaving the stuff on the table when it comes to play calls wasn't a bad thing, and maybe kind of was a plan of Taylor's, because since we're going to be playing again, it kind of makes some sense. But something else, when you look at this Bengals team against the Ravens, go back and look at Sunday Night Football. Early on in the season, I thought we were 100% going to win that game. Because, when you look at this Bengals defense, there's not a better team who stops the Ravens better than the Bengals. That just, it shows the greatness of Lou and Narumo. Jackson really played bad passing. The Ravens could not get anything great running on the ground, in our first matchup earlier this year. But when you look at it, offensively, we just cannot really get it going against Baltimore. Taylor really struggled that game coaching. We ended up losing that game, I believe, 19-17 by, of course, Justin Tucker game-winning field goal. And you look at this game. Yeah, there were some things that Taylor left on the table, but even still, this was kind of the second game we've seen, both games this year against the Baltimore Ravens defense, that Burrow's kind of struggled. And, I do think we will end up winning this week, but that's something maybe to look at, because when you look at, Burrow, he might struggle a game, but if he plays that team again, more than likely he's going to come out play much better. Look at the first time we played the Browns. That was our first game without Chase. He played terrible that game. Look at the second time we played the Browns, he played a much better game and everything, made better decisions, had better throws and stuff like that. But the fact that Burrow's played 2 average, I guess, games against Baltimore is something to kind of look at, as we get up to the game this weekend in the wild card matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we go back to last year, though, and what he was putting up like monopoly numbers against them. So it's kind of crazy. And that was against a better defensive coordinator than they have this year. So I don't understand what was going on. But that Sunday night game, we walk through it. I just didn't. That was just a really bad offensive game, like you said. And this game, I don't know. Maybe we'll blame it on the vanilla aspect. But the Ravens are a good defense overall, so it makes sense. They know us well. They game plan against Joe Burrow on a regular basis. It's probably that's what they have nightmares about when they go to sleep, is Joe Burrow more than anyone else in this division. So it makes sense that they're extra jacked up to play us, and maybe their schemes are a little tighter against us. But I don't know, Jordan, for some reason I'm just not worried. I think that when we need to put up points, we're going to, and I don't think they're going to have an answer for Chase. With Marcus Peters, Humphrey, they're not going to be able to keep up with Chase. And I think that's what we're going to see in the playoff game, is Burrow to Chase quite frequently. And you didn't see a lot of Higgins this week. I don't know if it was by design or if he was still a little rattled at the incident, but look for him to have a big game too.
Yeah, I fully expect Cincinnati to beat the Ravens this week. I don't care if it's, Anthony Brown. I don't care if it's Huntley, Jackson. We will not lose this game. I have said the whole year, I just don't think there's a better team to play against in the playoffs than the Baltimore Ravens. Jackson turns into Andy Dalton when it comes to the postseason. Huntley's basically Lamar Jackson 2.0. But when you look at this, game yesterday between the Bengals and Ravens, the Bengals, they won. That's what matters most. They could have played a lot better. But by far the most concerning thing yesterday was the injury of Alex Kappa. When you already have Leo Collins, our right tackle, who's injured and is out for the year. Alex Kappa, right guard, I'm going to assume, this is just kind of speculation, I'm going to assume he's out for the year, just the way how things have been. So when you look at our, right side of the offensive line, our offensive line has played so freaking good as of late. Yeah, there might be a play 2 here and there that kind of struggle, but when you look at the last time, I think we've been sacked more than 3 times. It's something ridiculous, and it's not a coincidence that's when our offensive line has started to play much better. That's when our win streak started and everything. But when you look at Collins, he's already down. So you have a way less, better player there. Then you have, with Alex Kappa going down, that's something to me. When you look at the playoffs, if I had to pick one concern, that's probably my biggest concern, because I know this offensive line is much better than people think. But the fact that we're down 2 starters now and both on the right side of the ball is definitely concerning when you go, play some of these pretty good defenses, maybe a team like a Baltimore, a team like a Buffalo here in the postseason.
Yeah, the Kappa injury is major. We're already hanging by a thread on that offensive line, even though they've been playing better as of late. And I got to say, Adeniji has not been playing badly. And I have not been his biggest fan during his career. And I still don't quite forgive him for the Super Bowl, whatever. That's just my personal thing. But that was at guard for him. I think he's better suited to play tackle, at least by the way he's playing this year so far. So he's been good so far. I don't know if that's going to change when he faces better defenses, and that Bills defensive line is killer. So who knows what we're going to see there. He actually held up on that first drive against them. I don't know what's going on there. But the Kappa injury, yes. I think that Kappa and Karras were the top offensive linemen. That's not a secret. And I think that Kappa was playing better than anyone on that offensive line. And we're going to really miss it in the running game. That's like the hidden thing that you don't realize. There's a lot of push there that you're not going to get. And he's got a lot of good movement skills, too, as far as pulls and stuff. So that there's going to be a decline there with Sharping going in there. But then you have the pass protecting aspect too. We finally got that solidified. Their communication was better up front. Burrow wasn't getting hit 12 times a game. It was getting hit a couple times a game. So everything was coming into play there. And with Kappa out, I'm nervous. So they're going to put Sharping in there, it looks like, because he's been in the league for a bunch of years. Second-round pedigree, 33 starts, the whole thing, whatever he's got going there. He's going to be the guy, but unfortunately, he's not going to be at the level of Kappa. So we're going to have some compromise on that side. And I hope that right side of the offensive line doesn't hurt our playoff and Super Bowl chances. We got through it last year. I don't know how we did. It was a miracle because that offensive line was bad on both sides. And this time we're just looking at a compromised right side. That could really be the only Achilles heel that stops us from getting to our goals. But yeah, the Kappa thing was devastating when it happened. I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe we can elaborate on this, Jordan. It looks like it's going to be Sharping, but you also have Jackson Carman. I know he's not a fan favorite, but he's someone to consider. And you have Deontay Smith, who's played well in spots. And then you also have the option of putting Trey Hill at center, moving Karras to guard. I know you don't want to displace 2 players, but those are all options, but none of those options is nearly as good as having Kappa in there, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like you're probably better off just sticking with Sharping. When you look at Carman, I just don't trust him. He's been given opportunities. He's never made the most of it. Each time he's had an opportunity, he's not really, played great. You talked about, Trey, Hill, moving him to center, Karras to guard. I feel like it's just too risky when you look at this offensive line. It's in the groove right now. We're playing really good. I just don't know why, changing it. And I feel like, Sharping would be the best option for us at right guard. You don't really want to switch, up anything. I've seen a couple of people say, oh, we should sign Quentin Spain or something like that, get Whitworth. I just don't get that. Like, it makes no sense to me. I know Whitworth, would be a cool, storyline to have him at right tackle. I know, Spain, he was great last year for us, but right now I feel like you're probably better off just with sticking people you've already had pretty much the whole season, who already has familiarity, with the scheme and everything. You don't want to change it, especially, the playoffs are this week. Like, if you would have done it, you would have done it months ago. If you would have done it weeks ago. If you wanted to have a guy like Quentin Spain come in, maybe, compete for a job or something like that, it should have been done a long time ago. Doing it now would be stupid, ridiculous, and a last-minute thing that they should have been more prepared for. But I would agree. I feel like Sharping would be best at right guard. You mentioned Adeniji. He's played pretty, all right so far for right tackle. When I looked at yesterday's game, I just feel like every single time I saw pressure, when Burrow was getting pressured against Sack, it seemed like it was Jonah Williams. And I feel like we say this every time on here. He has just not lived up to the hype of being a first-round pick. His top 15 pick in 2019 has never lived up to the hype at all. And, I still don't understand giving him his 5th-year option. He has that fully guaranteed contract next year, with that being his 5th year since he was a first-round pick. But, to me, I feel like he'd probably be the biggest weakest link on this offensive line. And the fact that you have him, then we're doing 2 starters on the right side, is definitely concerning. Getting into the postseason here, NOC one time, the offense looked good, looked off at times unique game for the Bengals. The task is to win the football game while not showing them everything relative to needing to beat them against, next week. Yeah, kind of like we're saying, agree there. Like you kind of want to have some stuff. You don't really want to show some stuff because you can have a lot of trick plays, lots of unique plays because you can show them this week because, just doing it this week would not make any sense. But it should be interesting, with playing the Baltimore Ravens this week in the postseason. So, like, when you look at the Ravens, we're going to be playing them. Was there a certain team you were wanting to play in the playoffs in the wild card matchup, and there was a certain team you were not wanting us to play in the wild card matchup?
Well, that's a good question. I would say who I wanted us to play were the Chargers, just because of the whole Burrow-Herbert debate. And the Chargers aren't nearly as good of a team as the Bengals, so I figured that we could watch Burrow take out Herbert and put that all to rest. So that was really more just like of a chip on my shoulder thing. I guess out of the teams that are in, you probably want to face Miami because they seem to be the weakest and they're hobbling right now. So they would probably be my first choice to play, even though the Chargers would be the fun choice. And the team that I would least like to face in the wild card round, I guess out of the wild card teams, I guess it would be the Ravens at this point, but I'm not afraid of them either.
I was kind of nervous, to play the Patriots. And I know it sounds weird, but when you're going up against the best coach of all time, this Patriots team is just the reason they're not as good is because they had a down offense. So they just had a slightly above average offense. This team is dangerous, and look what happened when we played them. Just a couple of weeks ago, their defense kind of really shut us down in the second half, and that defense is significantly underrated. At the time, when we played New England, I believe they were second or third in sacks. Judon was second in the league in sacks. They were second in picks. Like that defense was very underrated. I just did not really want to have to play New England. I feel like right now we can beat anybody, but New England's defense is tough and one of the more underrated defenses in the NFL. I wanted the Ravens so bad. Like I know I keep on saying I cannot wait for this game. Because there's just something about this game. Ruben Arumo, his scheme and everything against this Baltimore defense, whether it's Huntley, we saw Brown yesterday, and Lamar Jackson. He's figured out Lamar Jackson. He's figured out Patrick Mahomes. His defense forced Tom Brady to have 4 turnovers, not in a game, but in one half. Like the greatness of Ruben Arumo right now is he's doing a phenomenal job. It's been a huge reason for the Bengals' success. I feel like you can put any quarterback against the Bengals defense, and I feel like for the most part, they're going to be able to shut them down. And I feel like we have the best chance to beat Baltimore compared to I feel like Herbert in the Dolphins. The Dolphins are injured right now. The Chargers, they've been injured a little bit, but they're kind of getting healthier, which is good for them for the postseason. But I was really eyeing this Ravens Bengals matchup really for a while now, and I cannot wait. We're going to have this matchup, especially in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and Jordan, you're one of the few Bengal fans that seems to hate Baltimore more than Pittsburgh. Am I correct in saying that?
I'm going to say no. I just tell it how Baltimore is. They're the most overrated team. I can't stand Jackson. I hate the Steelers more than any team in any sport. But recently with Baltimore, I hate Baltimore right now more than I ever have. Like just their fans, just how overrated they are, Jackson, all that hype. But I know it seems like I hate Baltimore more than anybody, but that's not the case. Because realistically, when I talk bad about the Steelers, they always prove me wrong. So I just don't talk about them. Because when I talk bad about them, they always do good. So I just shut up about them. But with Baltimore, when I talk bad about them, 98% of the time they prove that I'm right. So I just talk about them as much as I want, basically.
I hear you on that. I don't like either one of them. So, and the fact that Pittsburgh didn't make it, that's fine by me.
Yeah, that was a team I was kind of concerned about us playing because I hate Pittsburgh. I don't like playing Pittsburgh. They're so dirty and everything. And every time that people are doubting the Steelers these past couple weeks, and I just don't know why you do that. This is the team who, after yesterday's win was 7-2 the last 9 games. Yes, they don't have a great quarterback, but their defense, they're always going to be good. They have, some very underrated players. I mean, if Highsmith was on pretty much any other team, he'd be the main star. But he's their third best player on defense. It kind of goes to show how good their defense is. But if it was a situation where the Bengals were 2 and the Steelers were 7, I mean, I feel confident we can beat anybody, but that was a team I was just not really wanting to face and everything.
Yeah.
I'm glad we avoid that situation because I don't want to see a situation, with Palmer getting hurt in the playoffs and just with Hill fumbling. Just the history that we have against Pittsburgh in the playoffs, it would be cool to beat them to kind of get that. I mean, we got that monkey off our back, 2 years ago on Monday night. But the fact, like, just playing Pittsburgh in postseason, it doesn't concern me about us winning. It just kind of concerns me, like, something bad's going to happen. I know it sounds weird, but just like with injuries and everything like that. But I'm glad we do have to do that. Jack Gamer says the Burrow Herbert debate isn't even a debate. Just look at each other's seasons. Yeah, I would agree with that. When you look at this season, lots of people had the Chargers in the Super Bowl. I think I had the Chargers in the Super Bowl. It was either the Chargers or the Bills. Everybody talks about Herbert. He was MVP. He's a top 5 quarterback. I like Herbert. I feel like I'm one of the few Bengal fans who, like Herbert a lot. But I know he's had some injuries this season, but he's not elevated his wide receivers like Burrow has. When you look at Jamar Chase, his first game without Chase, Burrow struggled a ton. It was just nothing there. They just had to kind of regroup, get this offense, going, see how it could be without Chase. And then you look at Trent Irwin, a guy who was not even a guarantee to make this team this season. It is absolutely insane. He has 4 receiving touchdowns this season. I feel like that's part of the greatness of Burrow. He can kind of, elevate these guys, basically kind of like how Tom Brady has. When you look at these Julian Edelman, some of these other guys. I think Edelman was at Kent State, small school, a guy you would not expect to do good. Kind of like Irwin, Burrow develops these, wide receivers, makes them, better and everything, makes his talent around him look better. And when you look at Herbert, it just seems like he's not really been able to do that like a Burrow. And most importantly, Herbert's not really been able to win as much as Burrow has. And I know the AFC West is a very difficult division, but, I mean, let's be honest. There's no bias here. I feel like we've said this when it's been brought up. The AFC North, I feel like, is the best division in the NFL the past couple of years. I know the Browns are down. I know the Steelers missed the postseason. But no game is normally easy against the AFC North team. But I don't know. I just feel like Burrow is better right now than Herbert. I got to debate last season up into the playoffs, but now I just don't see how it's even a debatable topic. I'm taking Burrow. When it comes to mobile ability, both these quarterbacks I feel like are both very underrated when it comes to scrambling out of the pocket and having some throws. But the only thing I'm taking Herbert over the Burrow is arm strength. But anything else, I'm taking Burrow 100% of the time.
Yeah, I agree. And Jack, you are right about that. It really isn't a debate anymore. It was more of a debate when they first came out. But once Burrow started winning all these games and going into the playoffs, you realize it's not just about arm strength. And Burrow has good arm strength, but it's about all the intangibles and the ability to win and reading defenses. There's a lot to it than just having a great arm. Herbert does have a better arm, but Burrow is by far a better quarterback. And I agree with both of you guys.
And when you look at it, Jack Gamer, I hate both the Steelers and the Ravens, but I've shown way more hate to the Ravens this season. Yeah, I completely agree. Like with the Steelers, I hate them, but I tell it how it is with them. Like as much as I don't like talking good about them, I will talk good about them when they deserve it. Heading into the season, I feel like I was one of the very few people. I felt the Steelers were the biggest threat to the Bengals in the AFC North. I was just not sold on the Ravens, but I was sold on the Steelers in the fact they just get that average quarterback play. They're dangerous. Kenny Pickett, he's not played great as of late, but you can tell, his improvements these past 4 or 5 weeks have been significant for the Pittsburgh offense. It's not a coincidence they were 7-2 their last 9 games, but the Bengals take on the Ravens. The Bills take on the Bills take on the Dolphins. The Chargers take on the Jaguars. There's some interesting matchups in the AFC, NFC even. But I feel like, we're going to talk about, picks here in each playoff game here in a minute. In my opinion, before we kind of talk about our picks for each, playoff game, I feel like the AFC, whoever's in the AFC, there's a very good chance they're going to win the Super Bowl. Bills, Bengals, or Chiefs. I feel like if any of those 3 teams represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, realistically, that's a very good chance of happening. Regardless of who they play, I think they're going to win. I'm not sold on the Eagles. I'm not sold on the Vikings. Kirk Cousins is freaking terrible in the playoffs in any game that's not at 1 p.m. You look at the 49ers. I like them a lot. I feel like I'm probably going to take them out of the NFC. When you look at these other teams, I'm not sold on them. I'm not sold on other teams like I am the 49ers because they've been there. They can prove they can do it. But when you have a quarterback who is Mr. Relevant, that's kind of my thing. When you look at the postseason, you get your best player, your quarterback. You're not going to see Brock Purdy throw for 300 yards a game or something like that, like a Burrow or Herbert could. But I just feel like the AFC to me has much more quality teams right now than the NFC. I don't even think it's remotely close.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It looks like the Super Bowl champion is going to be the Bengals, Bills, or Chiefs at this point. And yeah, as far as the NFC, I mean, the Eagles are playing well. They have a great offensive line, a great defense. Hurts is having a great year. Good running backs. You know, they're definitely a good team. The Cowboys would be fun for the Bengals to play in the Super Bowl, just because I don't know. It just seems like a fun matchup, and I think we would annihilate them. Not like what happened in Week 2 when Micah Parsons took the game over. But the Niners look like the team. They look like the Bengals of the NFC, where they've won a bunch of games in a row and they're hotter than anyone right now. So as far as momentum, we could be seeing a third matchup between the Bengals and the Niners. And if that happens, I I cannot see Brock Purdy beating Joe Burrow. I know everything else factors in. It's the whole roster, it's the game plan, it's everything. But just on paper, if we go to the Super Bowl against them and Purdy beats Burrow, I'm not going to talk to anyone for a month because it just can't happen that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the fact, like, if we go to the Super Bowl, I mean, that second straight year, like the fact that we were talking about this is just kind of insane. Like 2 years ago, we're like jumping up and down over a Monday night win over Pittsburgh, like the Steelers. And now we have a chance to possibly go to the Super Bowl for the second straight year. But, it's like the 49ers, like that is the team out of the NFC I'm not going to say I'm nervous about, but I feel like kind of matches well against the Bengals because they have an elite defense. They have so many playmakers on offense that if you just put a game manager on San Francisco like a Brock Purdy, they can be very dangerous. And with our defense, I think we match up well against, playing against a Purdy. But, let's see here. Jack says Vikings not out the first round. Definitely possible. Like the Vikings are not good in the playoffs. I despise the Ravens for even more. That's interesting because, it's weird. 4 years ago, you could not see any Bengal fans say that they hated the Ravens or Browns more than Steelers. But now you're seeing it more just because, the obnoxious, Browns fans, with Watson and everything, just the aggravating, Ravens fans and just how overrated they are and everything like that. But kind of talking about these picks here in the AFC, let's see here. I'm going to take the Chargers and Jaguars game. I'm going to take an upset. I think the Chargers were pulled off. The way they've been recently, I think it's definitely doable. When you look at this game here, the Chargers, I know that they're getting healthy, but this Jaguars team, I'm not saying they're going to be in the Super Bowl at all. But they remind me a little bit of us last season, a team who got hot later on in the season and, really kind of picked it up towards the end. But I'm going to take them over the Chargers. I'm going to take, obviously, Cincinnati over the Ravens. That's not even close. The Bills and the Dolphins, I just trust the Bills right now much more than the Dolphins. The Dolphins are not healthy. Then we go to the NFC. I'm going to take Brady over the Cowboys. You can never doubt Brady, and this Cowboys team is very inconsistent. Prescott could have one good game one day, then the next day be absolutely terrible. Upset pick, kind of like Jack said, I'm going to take the Giants over the Vikings, and then obviously I'm going to take the 49ers over the Seahawks. I don't think that game is even close. So who would you have winning in your wild card matchups?
I'm going to agree with you on the entire AFC. I mean, the Chargers-Jags game could go either way. The Jags did beat up on them earlier in the year, but that was when Herbert was initially hurt with the ribs. But they're playing with momentum, and the Chargers are one of those teams that should be better than they are, and they just always find a way to be average. So I'm going to say that the Jaguars win there. Obviously the Bengals, obviously the Bills. And then going over to the NFC, I don't know. I'm not trusting that Buccaneers team this year. Every week you think you're going to see the old Tom Brady and they're going to be good again. And they barely put up 15 points a week these days. So I got Dallas there. And then the Niners, obviously I have there. And I know I'm in the New York market, so they're talking about the Giants upsetting the Vikings. I know they played well against them earlier in the year, but I don't believe in Daniel Jones and the Giants right now. So I'm going to say that I think the Vikings will win there.
It's interesting when you look at the Buccaneers and a Cowboys game. Like I feel like those are two teams who are just hit or miss. They can beat one of the better teams in the league, but they could definitely lose to one of the better teams as well. So when you have your AFC matchup, you have the Bills and Bengals and the Chiefs and the Jaguars. Who do you have winning those matchups?
Well, we're looking at Bengals Chiefs again, going into Arrowhead and hopefully giving them their fourth straight loss against us.
Yeah, it should be a really interesting one. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I'm going to take the Bengals over the Bills in that one. We would be the 3 seed. There would be the 2 seed. So who do you have in the Jaguars and Chiefs matchup?
Yeah, it would definitely be the Chiefs. So then we would meet them again.
It's so ridiculous that realistically, I feel like this could happen with the Bengals and the Chiefs playing each other in the AFC Championship game. But the fact that we are playing in Kansas City, but the Bills aren't, it makes absolutely no sense to me. And the Bills, I don't really want to play the Bills in Buffalo. That would suck, which with the weather and everything. The NFC, you have the 49ers taking on the Cowboys and the Eagles taking on the Giants. So who do you have one of those?
I would go 49ers, Eagles there. And then ultimately I would go 49ers. So, oh my God, are we looking at a 49ers Bengals Super Bowl again? Oh my God.
Each time, like I've done this multiple times, and I try to be realistic as I possibly can. I think the 49ers are going to beat the Eagles. Yes, the Eagles have played sensational this year. Nick Sirianni has done a phenomenal job for the Eagles this year. Hurts has been phenomenal. He's the MVP candidate. But look at last season when Jalen Hurts was in the playoffs. He didn't do nothing. And he might be good in the playoffs this year. But even if he was great, I'm still taking the 49ers. Like I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, this 49ers team has experience in the NFC Championship game. They have experience in the Super Bowl. Shanahan is one of the better coaches in the league. He's been able to, get to the NFC Championship game, Super Bowl. He's been there. He's done that. Look at Sirianni. He doesn't have a playoff win. Look at some of these other coaches. They just don't have the experience like Shanahan. I'm taking the 49ers. You taking the 49ers as well against the Eagles?
Yes.
So Bengals Chiefs AFC Championship game. This is so weird. Realistically, I think the Bengals can beat the Chiefs. I think the Bengals can beat the Chiefs, but we're talking about beating the Chiefs for the 4th time in 2 years. The odds of this happening are absolutely crazy, but if anybody can do it, I think it's the Bengals. The Bengals have the Chiefs number. Lou Anarumo is absolutely phenomenal against this Chiefs offense. I think we can do it. I just cannot believe we could be seeing the Chiefs and Bengals in the AFC Championship game again. I think the Bengals will defeat the Chiefs again in the AFC Championship game to go to the Super Bowl for the 2nd straight year. This is just crazy that this is even a conversation we're having. Just a couple years ago, like we were hoping to get a win against anybody. But this lines up for a Bengals and 49ers trilogy in the Super Bowl. The 49ers, to me, I think are the team most likely to be in the NFC. Represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I think the Bengals make it to the Super Bowl. The way they're playing right now, I don't think there's a harder team in the NFL than Cincinnati. The way they're ticked off right now with the playoff format and everything, they're going to be ready to go for the postseason. I think the Bengals will beat the 49ers to finally get revenge on them from years and years ago for 49ers beating them 2 different occasions in the Super Bowl back in the 80s. The Bengals will get their first Super Bowl in franchise history, a win against San Francisco. Should be a great game. Honestly, when you're looking at on paper, I feel like this will be the best Super Bowl matchup, the Cincinnati Bengals against the 49ers. Joe Burrow against Mr. Relevant. It has an underdog, for the 49ers. Burrow, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Should be so much fun. Bengals over 49ers in the Super Bowl. That would be amazing to see.
And the first pick in the draft of one year against the last pick in the draft of another year. Kind of ironic there. But yeah, it's going to, like you said, it's going to be tough to beat the Chiefs 4 times. And, I'll never pick against the Bengals. So you can, whether I believe what's going to happen or not, I'm going to say the Bengals all the time. Sorry, that's just the way it goes with me. But yeah, it's going to be hard to beat the Chiefs 4 times. I think we can. I think we will. But if we don't, I can understand why. I mean, that's Andy Reid. Eventually, he's going to crack the code. Mahomes is a superstar, but we've had such good success against them, and they've been a little up and down, honestly. I know they played well last week, but there's been a couple weeks there where I'm like, oh, we're better than these guys.
I completely agree there. And it's one of those things, when you look at the Bengals, they might have struggled just a tad bit here and there, but they've been winning while they've been struggling. Like they were leading when they were struggling. It's not like they were, having to come back and everything like that. You look at the Chiefs, like you're saying, they've kind of struggled as of late, and they don't look as good as they did, when they played the Bengals not too long ago. I feel like, honestly, if we're talking about the best teams, I think it's the Bengals and the Bills. I would take the Bengals and the Bills right now over the Chiefs. They're just playing down to the level of competition, I feel like. But I feel like the Bengals, if any team can beat the Chiefs 4 times in a row, and within 2 years, I think it is Cincinnati. Just the way they play against Mahomes, the way they shut him down, the fact that Lou Anarumo has done it several times now just shows how good of a defense coordinator he is. I know it being in Kansas City will be difficult. I know the Chiefs fans will be, fired up and excited that they're going to get revenge on Cincinnati. I would think we're going to win this game. Would I be shocked if we lost this game? Absolutely not. But this is another one of those Cincinnati and Kansas City games that has possibly game of the year written all over it. Should be a great one. And honestly, I feel like whoever wins that game, I think is winning the Super Bowl. Even if it is against the 49ers, I feel like the 49ers are a very, very good team. But when you win in the league, normally the team who wins has the better quarterback. And Mahomes and Burrow, they're a little bit better than Brock Purdy. I know I might be stating the obvious there, but I feel like Bengals and Chiefs in the AFC Championship game for the second year in a row should be so much fun. The fact, like, the Bengals could be in the Super Bowl for the second straight year, and honestly, we look as right now. I feel like we look better right now than we did compared to last season. This team and these players have a year under their belt, more postseason experience. Look at last year; we had like no postseason experience at all. I know Mike Hilton was in the playoffs with Pittsburgh, maybe a couple other players. That was about it. Now, pretty much everybody on this team has been in the postseason. We have so much more experience now. Just really kind of helps us, and I feel like our defense is better compared to last year. So much to look forward to in this playoffs. I cannot wait for it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jordan. We are a better team than we were last year, and we were hot last year down the stretch, and look what we did. And yeah, I do think I guess I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the best Bengals team of all time, because I felt that last year was. And, I was around for those old teams. I saw the Esias in the Super Bowl. I actually saw the Ken Anderson Super Bowl. I know it makes me sound old, but out of all the teams, the 05 team was great. The Jeremy Hill team with the fumble, they were a great team too. But the 82 Bengals, I don't even want to talk about them. No one wants to hear about old history. That was the strike-shortened season, but they were on fire that year. But yes, the 2021 Bengals are the second best Bengal teams of all time, and the 2022 is the best Bengals team of all time. Hopefully they'll get what we all dream of done, and this is our year.
You mentioned 1982, and this is still random. In 1982, a kicker won MVP. He played for the Redskins. That's just so weird to me. Like, a kicker's won MVP, but a wide receiver hasn't. Like, Cooper Kupp should have won MVP last year, or Burrow, but a kicker has. Just kind of a random, stupid stat there. But, I feel like this team, the 2022 Bengals, is 10 times better than the 2021 Bengals, because when you look at our games this year, most of the games we've lost or even won, when we won, we're not coming back from behind compared to last season. When you look at last year, let's be honest, there were several times McPherson bailed us out like Tucker's bailed the Ravens out. There was 4, 5, 6 maybe games. McPherson got a game-winning field goal at the end. Even look at the first game of the year, the Vikings, the Chiefs game, the Titans game in the playoffs. There were several games where McPherson really helped us a lot. And we've not really had to rely on McPherson as much this season. And it just kind of shows that this Bengals team is for real. They're playing better. And the fact that, we're not relying on a kicker to win us games, like unlike last season, our defense is better. And, really, we were in every game except one this year. And it's kind of crazy when you look at it. Heading into the year, 0-2, we looked bad. We were kind of nervous there for a little bit, but we were still in that Steelers game. We were still in that Cowboys game. We were still in the Ravens game. We definitely could have won any of those three, and maybe even all three of those. But look at the only one we weren't really in was the Browns game. And look at last season, there was a couple games, we lost that we could have won. But I just feel like this team this year is miles better than this team compared to last season. And the fact that they were in the Super Bowl, it makes me even more excited because this team is better. So we're definitely capable of winning the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And we could have very well been 15-1 this year. I mean, we had the snapping thing in the first game. That should have been a win. Cowboys game came down to a field goal. The Ravens came down to Tucker. And I know Jack, who called in before, mentioned we don't want to see – it's the Bengals versus Tucker. And that's my biggest nightmare for this week. And I know it's not going to happen. Please don't let it happen. But I'm just seeing like Burrow lead us to a late touchdown. And then the Ravens get the ball with 40 seconds left, and somehow they drive into field goal range, and Tucker boots like a 58-yarder to win it. I shouldn't even say it out loud, but in my deepest, darkest nightmares, that happens sometimes. So that's the only thing I can see going wrong this week, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Oh, well, I completely know what you're saying. I mean, when you look at the Ravens game, even yesterday, I believe Justin Tucker had a multiple 3-4 field goals, something like that. When you look at the Sunday night game early on in the season, Justin Tucker had 4 field goals. It was 19-17, but Tucker had 4 field goals, and of course, the only way they won was a Tucker field goal at the end. That's the only way they know how to win, is relying on their kicker. Justin Tucker is more valuable to the Ravens than any other player. Call me crazy. I just tell it how it is. You take away Justin Tucker, they are by far the worst team in the AFC North, and it's not even remotely close. But yeah, that's like, if you get Justin Tucker, if he gets 3-4 field goals, it should be maybe interesting. But that's how their offense is. I just feel like you're better off taking a chance getting a 50-yard field goal from Justin Tucker than compared to maybe going on a 4th and 3 with a quarterback who has not played as good as people thought this year. Like, this Ravens team, to me, like, it's, if you shut down Tucker, you're going to win. If you just stop them, if they get past the 40, they're going to score. Like, it's so weird. Like, if you kick a ball out of bounds, they just need about 15 yards, and he can kick it. Like, it's so crazy that this being talked about, that a team relies on a kicker this much. But ultimately, like, regardless of Tucker's going or not, regardless of Huntley plays or Jackson plays, I think we win. I want Jackson to play so bad, because I do not want there to be any freaking excuses when we kill the Ravens this week. But I'm sure there's going to be excuses if Jackson doesn't play, or even if he does. Well, it's his first game back in forever. We will beat them by a ton. I think the spread right now is 6.5. We'll beat the spread 100%. This game will be not even close. Even if Mark Andrews plays, even if J.K. Dobbins plays, and even if Lamar Jackson plays, the Bengals win this game easily, and then we'll go on to the next round. This is basically a bye week. Like, there's zero chance the Ravens win this game. I know I might sound confident, and I sound cocky and everything, but every single time I talk about the Ravens, they've never, like, every time I talk about them, I'm never wrong about them. This team has been the most overrated team this year. They've been the most overrated team last year. And when they play great teams, they hardly ever win, but if they do, it's because of Justin Tucker's legs. And the way this Bengals defense is against Lamar Jackson and this Ravens offense, they don't have a chance. The Bengals win this game by at least 10, 14 points.
I would love to see that, definitely, and I definitely think you're right. I mean, it's I know it's bold and Homer-ish of us to just say the Bengals are going to blow them out, but I think the Bengals are going to win. It's hard when you have a team that your tight end is your leading receiver. I know Kelsey does it over there, but they have other weapons. And, you're looking at a Baltimore team that if Jackson or Huntley aren't in there running the ball, they're handing it off or going to their tight end. They're getting no production out of their wide receivers. So for that reason alone, how are they going to score as many points as the Bengals, who have 3 horses on the outside, have a great tight end and a couple good running backs, and even, we go to Trenton Irwin, the 4th receiver. Go to Trent Taylor, the 5th receiver. We have so many weapons compared to them. I can't see them keeping pace with us unless they get some fluke turnovers. And that's how sometimes an inferior team can beat a good team, is if they get a pick 6 on that first drive, or return an opening kickoff, or some combination of a couple turnovers back to back. Like, those are the weird things that could swing the game in Baltimore's favor. But if everything goes normal and it's just mano-a-mano, our drive versus your drive, Bengals got this one.
And that's an interesting point, because when you look at that, a pick 6 early on, or a kick return for a touchdown, I feel like we've had this conversation before. When you look at teams who had a pick 6 in the defense on opening drive, or a kick return for a touchdown, the odds of them winning, or the percentage of them winning, is ridiculously high. Look at the Michigan TCU game a couple weeks ago. Michigan went for a Philly special on 4th and 2 when they should have kicked a field goal. They didn't get it. It gave all the momentum to TCU. Michigan's following drive, they threw a pick 6, and TCU scored. Even more momentum. A team who had lots of people did not think it was going to be Michigan. I did not think TCU had a chance to beat Michigan. But the fact that when you get that momentum going, it's hard to stop, and it's really hard to get back in that game. And I completely agree what you're saying there. And, talking about the Ravens and everything, like, I think we will beat them easily. Honestly, Dolphins, Steelers, Patriots, Jaguars, Chargers, any other team who would have been in the playoffs, I would not be this confident about. Like, I just feel like this Bengals team matches up against the Ravens perfectly. There is not a better team that the Bengals match up against than Baltimore. And I definitely like our chances this upcoming week. Should be a fun one. Cannot wait for it. And it's just so crazy. Like, when you look at this Bengals team, it was 31 years that we did not win a playoff game, but now just in a little over a year, we won 3 last year. We're going to win at least 1 this year. It's crazy how much time can change. Just basically the Joe Burrow effect. It's crazy how much has changed this franchise around.
100%. I can't thank him enough. And they asked Joe Burrow, does he believe in a Super Bowl window? You know how when your quarterback's not highly paid and you can surround him with expensive talent. And Burrow was like, yeah, the Super Bowl window was my whole career. So he's not buying into that other side either. So as long as you have a guy like that, he's like your Brady and your Rodgers, you're always going to be in it. And we are so lucky because we're always going to be in it.
100%. Cannot wait for this game between Baltimore and the Bengals this upcoming weekend. So Frank, can you kind of tell some of the listeners where they can follow you on social media?
Yeah, the name of my show is called The Unofficial Bengals Podcast, and you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at cincinnatibengals.
Definitely go check out Frank there. I'll put the descriptions below so you can check him out on Twitter, Instagram, and his podcast. He has the best Bengals podcast out there. Unbiased. He tells that it is. He has great analysis and everything like that. So make sure you're going to go check that out. Follow me, the Sports Dude Hines Show on Instagram, SDude Hines Show on Twitter. If you're all new to the channel or have seen the videos before, if you could subscribe and like this video, I would appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you all next time on the Sports Dude Hines Show.